getting back to the Stanton situation, and I gave these stats a bit in the first hour, and it bears repeating. So the Yankees made that trade for Stanton after his great 2017 season with the Marlins. And he starts off with the Yankees great. In 2018, he had a 4.4 WAR. That's the best WAR he's ever had as a Yankee. And he played 158 games. I mean, that almost seems like a fantasy right now. Stanton playing 158 games. In 2019, right, he played in 18 games. Had a 0.4 WAR. 18 games. 2020, which was the COVID year, out of 60 games, he played 23. 0.6 WAR. Then he had a bounce back in 2021. He played in 139 games, 3.1 WAR. And the last 3 years, 2022 played in 110, 0.7. 2023 played in 101, minus 0.8. That means he's under replacement player. And 2024, 0.7 WAR, played in 114 games. Now, you look at his Marlin years, right? 2014, he had a 6.5 WAR. In 2017, the year he won the MVP and hit 59 home runs, he had a 7.9 WAR. That's who the Yankees traded for. And they got some of it in 2018. They've gotten nowhere near it since. We get a lot of Yankee fans that call into the show, and they all talk about, especially the guy from Westchester. Forget his first name. Could be Adam. And is it Adam? Oh, it's Dave. Right?
No, he's on line 3.
Right. And he's actually on the line. We'll get to him in a moment. He doesn't see the value in Judge because Judge has not performed in the postseason. So I guess that Dave would see the value in Stanton not playing and then playing well in the postseason. That's why it's a strange argument to have, because the Yankees are built to win World Series, and Stanton has shown up in every single postseason. I mean, he was phenomenal last year. He really was. Won the MVP in the ALCS. But is he worth the price that you pay him? And clogging up the DH, which could give Judge a lot more time off of his feet as he gets older, is it worth it to get that spurt of production in the postseason when he can't stay on the field in the regular season? My answer would be no, it's not. I think you could find guys that could hit in the postseason, maybe not at the level that he's gotten to, but the fact that he's not available during the regular season on a consistent basis is going to cost the Yankees at some point. If he's not available for 120 games, 125 games this year, that really will hinder the Yankees as they make a push to the playoffs. They need somebody behind Judge in the lineup. And you heard what Buster Olney said, and I agree. If the Yankees had to do this deal over again, I don't think they would ever say it publicly. They would never do it over again. This is not the player they thought they were going to get. This is a shell of the player they thought they were going to get. A shell. He had one season that you envision, and that was the first season. Since then, his body has betrayed him. He's played 7 years with the Yankees, and he's had only 2 of those 7 where he's had a WAR of over 3. When you consider what Judge did last year, he had a WAR over 10. So you're clogging up that money on the payroll. You're clogging up the DH spot. He can't run. He can't run the base. He's a base-to-base guy, even when he's great in the postseason, and he can't play the field anymore. My question to you, for the people that say, yeah, I'll take him just because he's great in the postseason, would you ever sign a player that can't run the bases and cannot physically play in the field for the money that the Yankees are paying Stanton? And the answer, if you're honest with yourself, is no way you would ever do that. There's no way. How could you think about signing a player that's so limited? But the Yankees have him, and they have him for 3 more years. So net, was it worth it? Because they haven't won a World Series with him. Yeah, he's had good postseason, but they haven't had the ultimate prize. And I think he limits their roster construction because you can't spread around DH days, because when he's available, you want to play him. So he becomes an everyday DH who can run the bases, physically unable to, and can't play the field, physically unable to. So is it worth the big postseasons if he's so limited during the regular seasons? 1-800-919-3776. Let's go to the phones. Chris in Mayapack. Chris.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Chris?
Doing great, thank you. Considering the recent Stanton news and the limited, options out there, besides like maybe a Marcus Stroman trade for protection for Judge, how about re-engaging Verdugo and give Judge more DH days to preserve him?
You know what, Chris? I can't say you're wrong. I thought about that. Verdugo has not gotten a bite in free agency. Not a bite. And he didn't have a great year for the Yankees, but he is he's a plus defender. And there's still something in there in terms of at-bats. The problem is the Yankees might be a little too left-handed at times, so then you're bringing in Verdugo. I think they might have to explore that, especially if they think that the Stanton injury is going to have an impact where he's not going to play even 100 games. I thought about it. I actually did think about it. And again, you're going to get him cheap because he does not have a bite. And I've said this before. I said this maybe a couple of weeks ago. Think about it. The Yankees, right? The Yankees made the World Series last year. And two everyday players on the Yankees, Anthony Rizzo and Alex Verdugo, cannot get a bite on free agency. Shows you how limited they were, and they still got to the postseason. So they were doing something right. 1-800-919-3776. Let's go to Dave in Westchester. Our buddy Dave. What's up, Dave?
Hey, how you doing, Michael?
Good.
I mean, basically, you took everything that I was about to say, and I'll just say it over again. When I read the stuff about Stanton, I'll ask you a simple question. It's very simple. This is not about Judge, who your screener wanted to make the whole conversation about Judge, okay? If I told you that Stan's going to play 30 games this year, that's it, nothing else, okay? We're going to fly him in at the end of September. You're never going to see the guy. But he's going to do the exact same thing in the playoffs that he did last year. Would you take that, or would you take he's going to have a great – no, I'm saying the gap has been closed. Mm-hmm. Boston and Baltimore are coming closer. But right now, the Yankees have pitching. I think they're a better team right now than they would be if they stay with the same team last year with Soto. Without Soto, they have pitching. The Mets have to do something. The Mets are forced to do something. They got to get a pitcher. If the Yankees stay the same, almost 100% they're going to make the playoffs. I'm not saying World Series, anything like that. They'll make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I will take Stanton in the playoffs. Let him miss. I'd give him a ticket. Go to Cancun. Here's your ticket. Fly in October 1st. Just do the same thing you did last year, and I'll take that. Rather than him hit 200 home runs and do nothing in the postseason.
Well, I don't think the way you're presenting it, Dave, is provocative. Because I mean, it's not like I'm not saying 100. He doesn't have to play 158 games. That Stanton doesn't exist anymore.
That's never.
But don't you want a guy who plays 130 games? Don't you think he impacts the Yankees during the regular season if he doesn't play and can't stay healthy?
I think he impacts the Yankees. Yes, I do. But I'm going to ask you a regular question. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't play at all, okay, say he plays 30 games, like I said. Okay. Do you think with the Yankees pitching staff and who they have right now, and maybe who they might pick up as an alternate player for him while he misses time, do you think the Yankees will make the playoffs? Simple question.
Yes, I do. I do think they. There you go. I think they make the playoffs. But then, Dave, it becomes harder though.
Back in the playoffs.
It becomes harder to make because you listen to the show, and I thank you for that. But Dave, my point is this: I think the Yankees are the best team in the American League. So I think they're making the playoffs. But if you say Stanton's going to play 30 games, then it becomes a lot tougher for them to make the playoffs. I don't think they're the best team in the American League without Stanton for about 120 games. You have to have protection for Judge, and you're saying, well, they'll go out and get somebody. Well, they want to get under the luxury tax. So they're $3 or $4 million over it right now. That's why they're intent on trading Stroman. So they're not going to get a player of impact for Giancarlo Stanton. There's nobody out there that can do what Stanton can do when he's healthy. He just can't stay healthy. Again, it's provocative to say, give him a ticket, don't play all year, and come back and do what you did in the playoffs. But it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that and be the same player that he was in the playoffs if you're not going to play leading into the playoffs. It's not some magic button that you push and all of a sudden you become this unbelievable player in the playoffs. It's just not that easy. I'm sorry, it's not. So you have to look at it and go, you got to weigh the pros and the cons. I love him in the postseason. He was phenomenal in the postseason last year. He carried them to the World Series. I saw all of it. But that is a real tough ask of the rest of the team. All right, one of the main guys, maybe the cleanup hitter or the fifth hitter in the lineup, is going to be out for all of those games. But I give the Yankees credit. They know exactly what's going on. And Brian Cashman said this a couple of years ago, and it angered Stanton. You know, we go into the season not thinking he's going to play every single game. They know it. So they probably have a pivot plan. Maybe that means playing Ben Rice a lot. Maybe that means playing Oswaldo Cabrera a lot. They've got a plan, but there's not anybody in their farm system that they could call up that would approximate what a prime Stanton could do. He is not a prime Stanton. He's just not. Ben Rice could be a nice player. Does he elicit that same fear in an opposing team that Stanton does? Is he going to give Judge the same protection that Stanton does? So in answer to our previous caller, would they make the playoffs? Yes, I believe they'll make the playoffs, even without him. But it becomes tougher. Why do you want to make things tougher? Because the tougher it is, the more you have to push people. The more you push people, those people could go down. If those people go down, then all of a sudden, that trip through the playoffs to get to the World Series again becomes exponentially more difficult.